Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. In the next hour, we will be meeting with mayoral candidate, State Senator Omar Fateh. We're going to find out why the Democrats are turning their backs on him. Indeed, the party that nominated him they've rescinded their endorsement, although he won it fair and square. So, what does that mean? And now we're in a government lockdown. A government lockdown. Some people think that this could be a pretext for the president firing many, many more Americans, thousands more. But what we do know is that the Democrats are saying, look, what we want are the health care benefits of Americans restored. As the big, beautiful bill is presently constructed, 4 million people will outright lose their health care. 4 million. At least 20 million people will see our premiums perhaps double, if not get larger. Can you imagine? Say if you're paying $1,000 a month now, you will be paying more than $2,000. If you're paying $500 now, you'll be paying $1,000. That is very, very real. In fact, we're seeing the spikes happen now. There are massive, massive cuts that the Democrats are saying that, look, we need to push back on that. And yet I just saw Vice President Vance, which is why I was running a little late, Jim Narakis, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, because I wanted to see what he said, and I needed to go back and listen to it again. Because whatever you think of Vice President Vance, he is eloquent, and he has a very, very smooth presentation. Really, it's an elegant presentation, but it was not true. If you are, as he puts it, an illegal immigrant, I have a real problem with the term. They're not fighting to give them health care. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. So let's talk about this. What Democrats are fighting for is for you to keep your health care and not have it be doubled. But you know, it's an interesting thing, Jim Narakis, when I was looking at the press conference in which the vice president made that assertion, no one pushed back. It was in the White House press room. I said, no, what are they? If they're transcribers, even those who take in transcriptions make corrections. I mean, help me. What are we looking at? Is this story being reported accurately?
Well, I think the way that you frame it is in fact the way it should be reported in terms of the impact that this dispute is going to have on the American public. But instead, it's being framed as mainly an issue that is going to affect political parties and politicians. Mm-hmm. You know, it's about who's going to have bragging rights, Republicans or Democrats, and the fact that the dispute between the Democrats and the Republicans has to do with healthcare for millions of people, and healthcare. You don't give people healthcare recreationally. You know, the government is not spending billions and trillions of dollars on health insurance for fun. You give people healthcare because healthcare saves people's lives. People's lives depend on it. People will die without healthcare. If you take away healthcare from 4 million people, some fraction of those people are going to die. Mm-hmm. I've seen estimates of 50,000 people a year are likely to die because of the health insurance cuts that were in the omnibus bill that was passed earlier.
Oh, that's from the Yale study.
Yeah,
they released that like as soon as this came through.
Yeah,
but Jim, we're not hearing that. No, I mean, even that study's not being cited.
No, and it's not hard to do. You can look at the health care outcomes of people with health insurance and the healthcare options of outcomes of people without health insurance. And people without health insurance, it's worse. They die more often, as you might imagine. Again, this is if people did just as well without health insurance as with health insurance, we could save a lot of money by just not giving people health insurance. But the fact is, this is a life or death matter, and it's not being presented that way. It's being presented as a beltway standoff by two stubborn parties, and why can't they just work this out? I think that by not talking about the stakes involved, by not talking about what is really going to happen as a result of whichever way this turns out, it's going to mean the difference between life and death for a lot of people. And your training as a journalist, as a corporate journalist, is to make it seem like it doesn't matter who wins or loses. You don't want to seem like you're taking a side. You want to make it seem like it's all the same to you how this turns out, because that means you're a fair and objective journalist. But the problem is, in order to do that, you have to leave out the human costs of the decisions that are being made, because the reality is, people really do get hurt when government takes healthcare away from people, and if that is left out, if that's not part of the story, people are not going to be able to understand what's going on.
We're talking with Jim Narakis, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and I want you to please support Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. Go to fair.org. They need and deserve your support. I want you to meet me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, at Santita J on X, Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook, and Santita Jackson IG on Instagram, but right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Listen to Bernadette. She's telling you, like and share. Hey, everybody. Hey, Bernadette, Robert, Stephen. And Stephen, of course, you always have something provocative to say. You said, actually, the Democrats want to keep COVID era healthcare policies that did give it to illegals. It's interesting. Here we are. One of the things that I think we should have learned from COVID, Stephen, is that everybody needs health care. I was in France a couple of years ago, and I wasn't feeling well, and I went to the apothecary, the pharmacy, and I paid next to nothing for my medicine. I mean, because once I got to France, I was absorbed into their system, Jim. And I spent a lot of time in Europe working, and it was not something that I paid attention to when I was young, because, of course, my parents took care of me. I was blessed enough to have that. So the first time I really experienced that was in Denmark when I was like 14, and people were talking about healthcare. I absorbed it, but it didn't mean to me what it means now, because I'm responsible for my own. And it amazes me that after we have lived through a pandemic where we shared the same air, that even if someone was in this country working without proper documentation, if they were ill, you could be ill. So you shouldn't be selfish when it comes to healthcare. You really shouldn't be. But this is not true. And they're peddling a lot of lies. But why you'd want to fight over a few people getting health care when the masses of American people need health care? We don't have this same fight when we are giving away financial aid internationally, when we're selling weapons, when we're giving weapons away, Jim Narakis. We say, no, you can't. We don't say, no, you can't use that to kill people. We just say, well, this is part of your aid package. It's stunning to me, Jim, that we could be so short-sighted. And yes, I do believe that's short-sighted. Hey, Miss Wanda. Hello, Robert. Again, and thank you so much for being so sweet today. So help me to understand, when you talk about corporate media and how they process this information, explain to me what happens with the White House press corps, right? They're in, I don't know why they call it a press conference. because really, the White House press secretary comes out in this at this moment. She speaks. She selects some people. She knows what the questions are, and if she doesn't like you, she's not going to call on you. And it's just there's nothing that's free about this. We're not getting any information, and there's no back and forth. Jim, I mean, no one says, "Hey, you're incorrect here." No one said that to the vice president. No one challenged him.
Yeah, I think that the press conference, the White House press conference, has become kind of a ritual, and under the Trump administration, it's a ritual that has less meaning than ever, because they are calling on people from the far right propaganda network that has helped them get into office. And yeah, if you ask pointed questions that are make the press secretary or the politician look bad, then you don't get called on, and you might get kicked out of the press room altogether, which has been happening to an accelerated degree under the Trump administration. AP was kicked out of the White House for a time because they continued to refer to the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of Mexico, instead of referring to it as the Gulf of America, which, you know,
Oh my!
and a judge finally said, no, you can't actually decide who gets to be in the White House based on whether they accept your decrees or not.
But you help me to understand as we're going forward, because we really don't know how long this is going to last. And it seems that the Democrats have drawn a line in the sand on healthcare. Vice President Vance said, well, if you sign the continuing resolution that is before the U.S. Senate now, we're willing to have discussions. That's not I'm willing to negotiate.
Right. You can discuss.
We can discuss.
Willingness to discuss is that's a pretty low bar. I think it's important to recognize that the Republican Party controls the White House. The Republican Party controls the Senate. The Republican Party controls the House of Representatives. They control and the Supreme Court as well. They control all three branches of government. The only thing that is stopping them from passing a continuing resolution and fully funding the government is the filibuster. The filibuster is it's a rule in the Senate that says for most bills you need to have 60 votes to cut off debate. This is not in the Constitution. This is not a law. This is a rule that is passed by the Senate. And you know how many votes it would take to get rid of the filibuster? 51. So anytime either party wanted to, that when they're in control of the Senate, they can say, okay, we're not going to require 60 votes to pass legislation anymore. We're going to now do things on a majority rule basis. And they could do that. They could do that this afternoon if they wanted to. It doesn't require a signature of the president or anything. It certainly doesn't require, the House of Representatives has no say in how the Senate conducts its debates, nor does the court system. It's entirely up to the Senate. So if they wanted to say, enough of this, we're gonna close debate on this and no longer operate on a supermajority basis, they could, but they don't want to. They have used government shutdowns. The Republican Party has used government shutdowns many times in the past. They think it's an effective tool when they're in the minority. They are often in the minority, and anticipate that they will be so again. And they don't want to give up this thing that they can hold over the government so when they say that the Democrats are stymieing the ability of the government to operate, it is 100% the Republican Party's decision that they want this shutdown to happen. Once they've made the decision that you need to have 60 votes, well, they don't have 60 votes in the Senate, and therefore, without as long as you have the 60 vote threshold, then you've got to have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party agree on how to go forward, and that's hard to do. But the original decision is the decision to require a 60 vote majority, and that can be changed at any time by the Republican Party.
And so we are really looking at party-driven politics as opposed to people-driven politics. We'll be talking about this with Minnesota State Senator Omar Fateh in the next hour. I mean, the Democratic Farmers Party of Minnesota nominated him. They have a caucus system, and he won overwhelmingly against the Democratic mayor, a fine man but a centrist. And so he's really out of step with where so many people are, like the Democratic Party's out of step with where New Yorkers are. And so they just say, well, we're going to rescind our endorsement. What? So you need to help me to understand, with information that you've just given me, why are we still watching corporate media? Because they don't ask the questions. We're not being well served by them, Jim. I think we're being misled.
No, they do have an enormous amount of resources to gather information. The New York Times, I believe, I'm not going to. It's a sizable fraction of all the reporters in the country are employed by the New York Times alone. Mm-hmm. They are out, talking to people, getting information. Sometimes, get processing data. It's valuable stuff, but you can't do without reporters. You can't. If we only had social media people writing their opinions without any reporters providing information about what's actually happening in the world, we'd be much more poorly served. The problem is that their information, it's not a window on the world like they like to pretend that it is. It's not, they haven't gone out and picked up all the facts they could find and put them in a big pile for you to sort through. The facts come pre-sorted. They are institutions that have agendas, that have interests. Their owners have interests, and the way that they present the world is in a way that is going to serve that agenda and protect those interests. And so, to the extent that people rely on corporate media, and it's hard to avoid using them for the amount of information gathering that they do, you really have to be aware that this is a spin, that these people are trying to sell you something, and the number one thing they're trying to sell you is the idea that they're not selling anything.
What should we be looking out for going forward? Because this shutdown, it seems to be, I was reading something by Robert Wright, our former labor secretary, and he said that this shutdown is a little different from others. It is enormously consequential. And I can't imagine 4 million Americans losing their health care, 20 million more having their health care imperiled. Because if you can barely pay your mortgage or your rent, how are you going to deal with the doubling of the cost of your health care. I mean,
Yeah.
this is extreme. This is enormously consequential. I don't know, but we're looking at personalities. We're not looking
Right.
at the people behind the stories.
Right. I think it's actually a very good tell in terms of what kind of news you're getting. If you are looking at stories about the shutdown and they are not talking about the consequences of healthcare cuts, if they're not talking about the human realities that lie behind the numbers that are being tossed around in Washington inside the Beltway, then that is news that is not giving you the whole picture. And you should be seeking out news that lets you know what the decisions being made by the powerful people are actually going to be doing to real people. If they are doing that, they're not doing their job. And you should be, I think that people who are tuning into your show are being well served because you are putting people first. You are framing the human cost as the most important thing here, which it is. If you came on and talked about, the Speaker of the House and the Senate Minority Leader and what this means for their careers, that would be doing a disservice to your listeners. But that is not how you approach the news, and it's not how good journalists should approach the news.
Well, indeed, that's how they're framing it. I mean, I'm a talk show host. What I seek, though, to be is fair, and I want to serve people. And I think that you serve people by giving people information, accurate information. If I'm incorrect, please correct me. But I just know that the cost is enormous, and some people are wondering if this is a pretext for more firings. And look, I think Americans are being pushed up against the wall. What do you want us to know before you go?
Well, I would say that one thing that's important to remember when Trump talks about firing people is that this is not his decision. That is something that has been even the Republican-dominated courts that he has been packing are not accepting the idea that the president can decide to take money away from the government and not spend it if he doesn't like what it's being spent on. Congress in our system controls the purse strings. The Congress is the part of the government that decides how much money is going to be spent on what. And it's super important to maintain that principle. That's a fundamental principle of our constitutional system. So when he says, if you're not playing ball with me, I'm going to fire these people. That's not his decision. That is something that if Congress has decided to fund a department, it's the executive branch's responsibility to carry out the instructions, the laws that the Congress has passed, and fund those departments.
Jim Narekas, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. Go to fair.org. I go there every single day between Jim Narekas and Janine Jackson and their tremendous team. I get the information that I need, and they help to give context, not just to the news, but to those who are reporting the news. It's important for you to know, well, as they say, follow the money. Follow the money. Jim Narekas of Fair, I just love you. Please give my love to Janine and
I sure will.
At Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. Much love to you. And I have another favorite person with me today, Dr. Algernon Austin. It's always wonderful to be able to get you with us today. I cannot believe it. Center for Economic Policy and Research. Well, and policy research. That's important to remember. Well, yeah, because now we are looking at a whole lot. This government shutdown, I think we haven't had one in 7 years, is it? But it's different this time. We've had the Doge cuts. We've had 319,000 Black women lose jobs from February to July, and the hemorrhaging is continuing. But we did see white women gain 142,000 jobs. We did see Hispanic women gain 176,000 jobs. We did see white men gain 365,000 jobs. But one has to wonder how long that will last with AI. And so I need to know what it is that we're looking at, because our former labor secretary, the brilliant Robert Reich, said, this shutdown is different this time, because so much is at stake. Some people feel that this is, I'm just giving it all to you because I need to get as much from you as I can, that it might be a pretext for more firings. Indeed, the president has alluded to that we'll have to furlough some people. Yeah, but it seems like the furlough is a pathway to a firing under this administration. So help me to understand what it is that we're looking at, because Democrats are saying, look, what we're really drawing the line in the sand on is healthcare. We've had $1 trillion in healthcare cuts. And we're looking at a lot of people who will outright lose their care, millions, 4 million, 20 million more are looking at the doubling of their premiums. Look, mine's just double. I was like, whew, I hope I can breathe at the end of the day. There's a lot that's going on, Dr. Algernon Austin. Help me to look at this, because somehow or another, I don't know. We knew that this was coming, but I know that Leader Jeffries told the Democrats just to stay. Maybe there's a chance we might be able to work something out. I only know that because I got a brother in Congress, right? And so he said, no, I'm not coming home, even though I don't know if I don't know if any difference. I think we're going to have to shut down. I think that's what's going to happen, because Leader Jeffries and the Democrats have said, you've got to take these healthcare cuts. You've got to put the money back. Put it back. What are we looking at with this shutdown? Now, I've given you all of this stuff. Because I only have you for 30 minutes, but that's enough. But I know that because you know the numbers and you understand the culture of Washington too, and you understand the policy. So help me to understand.
So I think it's important. You raised so many important points, and I heard a little bit of your previous guest, and also very important points being raised. And I think it's useful to even take a bit of a step back, a little further in different ways. So first of all, it's like, where do you start? There's so many. With this administration, there's so many things going on simultaneously. But one of the threads that we have to weave into this understanding is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which I like to call the kind of billionaire bill, because this administration has had more billionaires involved in it than any other administration in all of in history. Probably, if you add up all the billionaires in every other administration, you probably won't even equal the number of billionaires in this administration. And there, people may recall they passed the billionaire bill and they added over $2 trillion in debt. And why did they do that? Because they wanted to give the richest 10% of Americans more money. That is what it is. And, when you average the entire top 10%, and these are people making $700,000 a year and higher, these folks are getting on average about $12,000 more because of this tax bill, this billionaire bill. And it was 2.4 trillion they're adding to the deficit, but they were like, we have to try to make it not be $3 trillion. So what did they do? They said, I know what we can do. Let's take money away from the poorest Americans so that we can give more money to the richest Americans.
Wait a minute, because they won't feel it. They're already poor.
Because it's a bill written by billionaires for billionaires. They don't care about other people. It's so they.
I forget. Empathy is a new age thing. That's what Charlie Kirk said. Bless his heart.
Empathy is woke. That's woke, and they're not woke.
Wow.
Wow.
But now I need you to hold that.
Yes.
Because that is socially unsustainable. When you have Chris Christopherson wrote in the wonderful song "Me and Bobby McGee," freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. You don't take everything from everybody, right? And think that they're not going to do anything. That's hubris, excessive pride and arrogance. And I'm seeing more and more people who you see Trump people at Bernie Sanders rallies. But they were already between them, the two of them, in 2016, because people have been in a lot of pain for a long time. And I think now it's beginning to crystallize into something that if we don't get a hold of this, Dr. Austin, I am uneasy about what could happen to us socially.
You're absolutely right, but their strategy is if we can get them to focus not on the billionaires but on other people, then we as billionaires are going to be safe. So that's why the messaging the messaging from the Republicans about this bill. Well, let me just back up. So this bill, as you were talking about, well, not this bill, but the fight is over within the billionaire bill. They're going to, the plan is to have, almost 8 million people on Medicaid to lose Medicaid, to have, many millions of people with higher premium rates, higher health insurance rates, which will also cause them to lose Medicaid, to lose their health insurance, their private health insurance. But that's all wrapped up in this bill. And this bill, because of these types of cuts, ends up with the lowest 10% losing. Remember, they gave $12,000 to the richest folks, losing $1,600. These are people making $20,000 a year. And then they say, let's take away almost $2,000 away from you. But like you said, this should create a lot of frustration and anger. But what they do is they say, well, what the Democrats want is to give free health care to illegal immigrants, right? So they don't want you to think about the money that they're giving to billionaires. They want you to get angry about the quote unquote illegal immigrants.
To these little brown people.
Exactly. So their strategy is, if we can get people direct their anger at Black people, or direct their anger at immigrants, or direct their anger at trans people, then we're good. They're not looking at the fact that the richest 10% and the billionaires are making more and more money every year. They're like, keep them distracted, hating the brown people. And then we can continue to essentially steal money. So that is what's going on. And so therefore, whenever people hear them, respond to the fact that millions of Americans are about to lose their health insurance or pay higher premiums. And when you look at the total of the damage that they're doing to our health insurance system, the Congressional Budget Office, that they're about to put in the next couple of years, 16 million people are about to lose their health insurance. So this is what the fight is about. But they don't want you to recognize that you might be one of the 16 million, or your neighbor might be one of your 60 million, or your grandfather or grandmother might be one of the. They were like, no. Let's talk about the quote unquote illegal immigrants.
Absolutely. I mean,
Get angry about them. Don't think about the millions of Americans, 16 million, who are about to lose their health insurance, so that we can give more money to the absolute richest people in America.
And the 50,000 a year who they expect to die every
Yeah.
year, according to that Yale study.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's why, I hear you, Steve, and I hear you, Solomon, but we should have learned from COVID, Dr. Austin, that I'm not safe if my neighbor's unsafe. I mean, we are in public spaces and places, and if one person gets sick, you can get sick too. One of my dearest friends, may she rest in peace, called me one day, and she was an affluent lady, but we lived in New York, and I say that to say that everybody in New York takes the subway. You know that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Too easy to get around. I mean, I could get from 135th Street to 72nd Street on the express train in 7 minutes. Yes, that's what my voice teacher was. So I mean, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me one day, completely in a state of shock. I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Girl, do you know I was at the doctor today and I found out that I have had exposure to tuberculosis."
Mm.
TB. I said, "TB? What?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, when did I see you last? Wait, are you okay?" And she said, "I take the subway every day." Just about, during the day, at night she would drive. But during the day, I said, "Wow." I said, "Well, I guess that means we need universal health care." We both laughed. We were like, "Yep, that's it." Because people need to be well. And there's no understanding of that. I mean, even I would say Stephen and Solomon and others who think as you do. And I mean, I hear you. There's a lot of you who think this way. It's so easy to punch down. Too many of us are afraid to speak truth to power and punch up, Dr. Austin. And help me to understand, because you talk about this billionaires bill. It's not characterized that way in corporate media at all. No one talks about all the things. They gain so much.
Yeah. And these are the richest people. I mean, income and wealth inequality are record high levels. And, so again, the people who are worried about prices and everything, it's like the very rich in America just keep getting richer. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why is that? Why is it that all of the rich Western countries, except for the United States, have pretty universal health care? Why is our health insurance more expensive than all of these other Western countries? I was watching this podcast about a couple. The man had a spinal injury, and he said, "Look, it cost him about $1 million for all the treatments that he needed, and he had to leave the United States because he said, I simply cannot afford any more medical bills. I have to go to another country because I know, and in other countries, you can pay 90% less for the same treatment. So why is that? And that's all part of the income inequality, because our pharmaceutical companies, our health insurance companies are extremely profitable. They are extremely profitable companies because of our healthcare system that funnels money up to the wealthy. I personally, my doctor and his system, I'll get a little personal. He's in the Johns Hopkins physician system. They just broke with United Healthcare because they're saying United Healthcare aren't allowing us to practice good medicine. If we stay with them, they are telling us what we can and can't do, and we're the doctors. And they're like, we cannot, in good conscience, work in that system. So now they are no longer in network with United Healthcare because of this dispute.
So what does that mean for your health care?
Luckily, my wife, when I go see my doctor now, I use my wife's health insurance. I can't use my own health insurance. So again, what does it mean? Why do I have this health insurance? I can't use it. And
wow.
Why is the health insurance company overriding my doctor in decisions?
What happens to these people if the Democrats compromise? Anyone who listens to this show, I'm not heartily partisan. I want results. I want the right results. I want people to be fed, clothed, housed. I want you to have equal access to equal high quality education, healthcare, all of that. I think there's a floor beneath which no one should fall. My pastor used to say, I've never seen God make a mouth that God could not feed. He was a very, very simple man, but a learned man, a very wise one. And that is not how we do this. Help me to understand what the calculation is, because these people in government have the information from Yale that says, as this bill has been constructed, what you signed into law, 50,000 people are going to die every year, and that's a conservative number. We're looking at millions of people who are immediately going to lose their health care. Other people, well, that doesn't even count the tens of millions who are not going to be able to afford health care. How is that supposed to work? I mean, what kind of policy is that? Does that make fiscal sense? Do you have people who are sick?
It does not. And that's a very important point. And you made it before, this level of income inequality, this level of hardship. I mean, if you look globally in terms of life expectancies in Western Europe keep going up. In the United States, they've started to go down. And people who now think about the social determinants of health, stress. The stress, can I pay this bill? Can I cut my medicine in half, cut my pills in half because I can't afford it?
My insulin.
Yeah. I have this, I have this cough, but I know I can't pay the co-pays and everything. So I'm going to just hope it gets better and try to treat myself. All of these things contribute to the lower life expectancy in the United States and the declining life expectancy. So it contributes to lower productivity. Of course, workers who are sick aren't as efficient and productive as workers who are healthy. Workers who are sick who feel like they have to go to work sick are likely to get their coworkers and their customers and clients also sick. So it hurts. Your important point is that this hurts the society as a whole. It weakens the society as a whole. And the more we can address this level of inequality in the society as a whole, the more we all do better. So the choice is, do we want to live in a society where we all do better, or do we want to live in a society where maybe the top 10% or the top 5% or the top 1% gets everything? And I think most people would choose, let's work for the common good. Let's not pass a $2.4 trillion deficit bill so that we can give more money to the richest and take money away from the poorest.
And Solomon, I am doing my research. Trump really brought insulin prices down and Biden took the credit. I don't care who did it. And I think that's a great thing. That having been said, it's still too expensive for many people. That's my point. Too many people are having to apportion a life-saving medicine like insulin. If it's just one person, that's one person too many. Many people, up until recently, you took animal grade insulin. And as they made advances, they made insulin for human beings. People are now going to the less expensive animal grade. There's a lot that's going on. I personally think we just need a universal single payer system. And yes, I would like to put these insurance companies out of business because we're just making them rich. They're not, and they're making my life harder. I always have to go through them to ask if I can get this. I've got a toothache. What am I going to do? Well, maybe that's not the best example because dental care you got to pay for yourself. So expensive. That's why so many people lose their teeth. I mean, it's not funny. And so, what is there a line in the sand that you think should be drawn? Where do we go from here? I mean, because I'm wondering, how long can this last? We did have one shutdown that lasted several weeks. I mean, how? And what happens to the government worker, Dr. Austin?
Yeah, no, it's terrible. And someone made a point that the Trump administration has already been, this is a drastic shutdown, but they've been doing the slow shutdown in cutting many agencies, and continuing to underfund agencies.
Mm-hmm.
My pet peeve is the IRS, and I try to remind people the IRS does not make any tax law at all. Congress makes the tax law. The IRS is essentially the tax police. They make sure people pay their taxes based on the laws that Congress passed. But when you underfund IRS, guess what happens? It makes it easier for extremely wealthy people to cheat on their taxes.
How so?
We lose about $700 billion, the tax gap. That is the amount of taxes that we aren't able to collect. And the people who can hide their wealth and hide their income are the people who have several businesses and tax attorneys and tax lawyers and accounts all over the world. They are able to game the system and not pay their fair share of taxes. To track those people, we need a fully funded IRS, but we have not. I mean, we continually underfund IRS, and DOGE also slashed IRS by another 10% this year. But let me give you an example. Even before DOGE, there were fewer IRS agents working at the beginning of this year than in 1991.
Really?
Give you a sense of how we've underfunded it. And then on top of that underfunding, and the IRS is using technology from 1970. Who do you know is using technology? But the IRS is, because Congress, the conservatives in Congress are constantly attacking it. And why are they attacking it? The weaker IRS is, the easier it is for very wealthy people, including billionaires, to not pay their taxes.
But not working class people.
No. If you're working, it's very easy to track your income and whether you're paying your taxes. That's easy. The complications, the vast majority of the tax gap is from the richest 10%, not the rest of the folks. So attacking IRS is another way, a stealthy way to allow more money to go to the richest 10%. They try to get people angry at IRS as if IRS made the tax law. IRS doesn't make any tax law at all. It's Congress that makes the laws. But by underfunding IRS, they allow the wealthiest folks to not pay taxes. And to just be really bold about it, the administration just said, if you have these offshore accounts, we're not going to look anymore. We're going to tell IRS, don't bother searching for these offshore accounts. I mean, it's the most bold piece of corruption I have ever seen. It's just amazing.
And Publishers Clearinghouse has gone out of business. So now everybody who got those big checks, they're null and void. Everything is upside down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But where do we go from here? I mean, it's an important question. I don't know. But if things don't change, like you said, many people are going to die. 16 million people will be uninsured, and I'm sorry if you think that 16 million are all people who are undocumented, you're absolutely wrong. You know, probably 90, 95, 99% of those are American citizens who will be losing their health insurance, all for the sole purpose of giving tax breaks to the richest 10%.
To the richest 10%. What do you want us to look out for as we make our way through this shutdown? Do you think it's a little different than it was before?
It is, because this administration breaks all the rules, right? We don't know, you know, everything that you're seeing is kind of unprecedented. Your prior guest was talking about, well, Congress is supposed to be in charge of the purse. This administration doesn't care about that. They're saying we get to determine what money is spent and where it's spent and who's it's spent on. And we're cutting funding that has been allocated by Congress. So it's a real question. And I think it ultimately depends on whether the American people understand what's going on. So what you're doing is really important to get people to understand that this is about, are we going to allow 16 million people to lose their health insurance because of the multiple different attacks in the billionaire bill? Are we going to allow people to die because they lose health insurance? You know, and hopefully people will be educated about this and aware of this, and, you know, express their opinion to their elected officials and say, hey, you know, we should be able to, you know, we should be able to provide health care to the American people.
Well, you know, Dr. Austin, I agree with you 1,000%. And I thank you for the information, because that should be the line in the sand. I mean, we can't worry about who we might give something to. You don't worry about giving away a bomb, but you worry about giving away a balm, something that heals somebody.
Yeah.
I think our priorities are just really off here. And, you know, and they're allowed to sell that instead of, and corporate media are complicit, because they should say, and they should feature stories about people who are barely holding on. The number one driver of bankruptcy in this country are your costs, even when you've got great insurance.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the man I told you, he had insurance. He was still, you know, lost a large amount of money, and he said, I have to get out of this country because I cannot afford any more medical bills. Well, any more U.S. medical bills. He could afford it in other countries, but he can't afford it here, so he had to leave the country.
I have friends who've moved to Mexico and Panama. They said, I cannot do this. And I mean, and these are people who've done extremely well here.
Yeah.
Time Venus Williams said, I came out of retirement for health care. She's made tens of millions of dollars. And you know what? We know her daddy and her mama. They made those girls keep that money. They are not poor.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can go broke very quickly or struggle. I mean, I know, what am I supposed to say to my father who's carried all of us? Are we supposed to say to him, well, you're costing too much? No. We got to batten down the hatches and take care of him. We want him here as long as we can have him here.
Yes.
And it costs a lot of money.
Yes.
Everything you saved is going to save someone. I don't push back against that, because he's worth it.
Yeah.
But I know so many families are dealing with that. And if they're blessed enough to.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you be real nice to your wife, because I want you to.
That's true.
You better stay married. If you don't, you got a problem.
I do. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
I'll tell her you said that. She'll get a kick out of it.
Oh, tell her I meant that. Tell her I'm on her side. But you know what but I think that's part of what this shutdown is about. Because if you're not partnered, I mean, and think of the LGBTQ plus community.
Mhm.
Many people are having their rights to a civil union, everybody married. Okay. I mean, they're having that threatened, excuse me.
Mhm.
Everybody, look, my father's an ordained minister, and that's important, Dr. Austin, because you're an agent of the state.
Mhm.
We've had some friends who got married by someone who's very well known. It turns out at the time he was not ordained. So they had to go back and get married because they found out that the marriage was not legal, right? So I've gone to many weddings with my father, and he is, bless his heart, in his working life, he's busy, he's running, but if he says he's going to do it, he's going to counsel you first. That's it was his requirement, and he'd marry you, but he wouldn't sign the license until after the ceremony.
Mhm.
He never signed it before. And, people would be hugging and kissing in the lobby. People were like, oh, you've done it. And my father would be standing there, well, I got to go. Let's go into the office. He said, this isn't legal until I sign this, right?
Mhm.
And they I remember the last time it wasn't the last time I went with him. These people looked at him and they said, Reverend, really? He said, yeah, it's a license. I've got to sign it. Let's go in here. And whatever he would say to them, okay, then he signed it and that was it. So you think of people in the LGBTQ plus community and the implications for them, for poor children, for poor people, people who work every day, who are the working poor.
Mhm. Yep.
And you don't talk about Elon Musk, who makes $8 million a day off of you.
Mhm. Yep.
Come on, everybody.
Yep. Yep.
I love you, Dr. Algernon Austin.
Love you too.
Santita,
Thank you very much.
I love your wife. Give her my love.
Will do. Okay. Until next time.
Until
Bye.
next time. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita Jackson. Of course, coming up, State Senator Omar Fateh, who won the endorsement of the DFL, and then it was rescinded. What do you think? At the top of the hour. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a moment.